So I guess what we wanted to discuss today, Shane, is just how the set of circumstances and events and lockdown and COVID and everything that's going on in the world has been affecting us from a health perspective, because you and I are all about health, and that obviously has various parts to it, including physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. And I just thought we should discuss how we've been affected, A, and then B, how we're coping.
Yeah, it's been affecting me pretty bad, actually. I'm always trying to sell everybody on, health is the first thing. You got to take care of your health. And I've actually let it affect me a lot. Stress is really taking me down. My immune system's definitely getting hit a little bit. Haven't been training as much. Today I got a little hike in. I'm feeling a little bit better, but it's hard. Stress is probably the most potent killer we have, beside all the toxins and everything else. It's a major factor. And so hopefully we can.
And you've also had extraordinary circumstances. I mean, your mother lives in LA, in one of the areas that's been affected by the riots. So it's been more intense for you than pretty much anyone else, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was anticipating more of a problem, and we're still not of the clear. But fortunately, it hasn't been to the degree that I was kind of expecting last night, and so that was good. Yesterday was a really tough day for me. I was pretty upset and concerned for her safety. But the one thing is I have good friends out there and people looking in on her, and fortunately, some people in the neighborhood are armed and watching her back. So it gives me some relief. Yeah,
I guess also, so where we could start, because you are just a paragon of physical health without a doubt. And what have you been doing to stay physically healthy during this time and to mitigate the potential effects of COVID-19 or also the stress that you've been under? Like you usually take quite a range of supplements, right?
Yeah, it really all depends. Initially, the COVID thing had me pretty worried. A few weeks in, I started really digging into the research, and I'm not as concerned. And I think a lot of people have really blown this out of proportion. Very debatable, obviously, but I'm not concerned for my well-being or safety with that. As far as that goes, one of the things I do to help protect myself is I do take supplemental vitamin D every day. They've found that there's it's between like 15 to 20 times greater instance of severe outcomes from it if you have low vitamin D. And so I take 5,000 IUs a day with some vitamin K in there as well. And that's been the primary source for me, just protecting my immune system. If I do feel a little bit run down, I'll take extra zinc at night, and I take it with quercetin, which is a zinc ionophore. I believe that's what it's called. But basically, it helps the zinc to get into the cell and protect your immunity.
I started taking zinc on your recommendation, and I mean, I'm not going to say it's made a huge difference because I can't tell, but I feel great. I feel healthy, and I'm sure it is doing something positive. I also take vitamin D and vitamin K. I actually take quite a heavy dose of vitamin K. I think probably the ratios I take them in are the exact opposite of yours, because you probably take this more vitamin D and then supplement it with a little bit of K, whereas I take more vitamin K and supplement it with a little bit of vitamin D. And speaking of vitamin D, I think one of the biggest cons that's been played on us by Western medicine is to make us terrified of being in the sun, right? Yeah. Like, I want to preface that by saying I don't think, especially if you're fair skinned like I am, going out into the middle of the noonday sun without being covered up for extended periods is obviously not going to be good for you, and you're going to get burned, right? But I live in Arizona, and I spend 20 to 25 minutes a day in the sun. Usually when the sun's a bit lower in the sky, like late afternoon or early morning. And I really have absolutely no doubt in my mind that is a healthy, positive thing, and it's not causing me any detriment to me. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, totally. And one of the problems people have as well is they've been told that they have to put on sunblock when they're out for any real periods of time, and that's blocking the vitamin or the UVB radiation from getting into, and which is actually producing the vitamin D in your body. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing that, you're actually setting yourself back. And yeah, people I think have a really, really, they're just overly fearful of it. And just like anything, it's a dose makes the poison. So if you're out there and you're in, in the sun for extended periods, you're going to get that damage to your skin. So the trick is to get out for adequate amounts of time. Trying to put chemicals all over your body to block it. Cover up with clothing. That's the best thing you can do. But I mean, I haven't put on sunscreen in 20 years. And I definitely push it. I definitely take it too far sometimes. I get too much sun, but I also try to increase my antioxidants on those days just to negate whatever free radical damage I've done. I don't know if that's necessarily going to work, but at least to my understanding of it, I think it's at least a small step I can take in the prevention. So.
No, that makes sense to me. And I think also just by its very nature, getting sun means you have to be outside, and being outside is just so good for you on so many levels. I mean, if we go beyond the physical level, I think also for your mental health, I find that when I'm inside for extended periods, whether it's working on the computer or for whatever reason, that's when I'm the least happy, right? And that just going outside for even an hour a day or 20 minutes, sometimes even, can just turn my whole mood around. And I think that if we consider what a lot of people are doing now, is they're staying indoors, isolated, reading stuff on the internet, including the news. And to me, that's basically the recipe for mental, emotional, and physical unhealth. Or unhealth isn't a word, but you know what I mean, or disease, I guess.
Yeah.
And so like that's why when you and I have been working on these projects for a while, and when you'll tell me I've been in front of the computer for like 8 hours today, that kind of it breaks my heart a little bit, because I know that you need outdoors more than the average person, and that it's not conducive to making you a happy, healthy person, or me either.
No, and I think it's really deteriorated my attitude lately. Because I actually genetically, I already realized that I don't make vitamin D very effectively. So it's something I have to be aware of. And yeah, man, I've sat in here for days, 12, 16 hours on the computer working. After a couple of days of that, I mean, even one day, your brain is fried, your eyesight's getting damaged. I mean, it's horrible, and it's a habit that I'm trying to get out of. But getting this business launched, doing enough research, just there's been a lot of things to take care of the design, and obviously communicating with you, it's necessary at times, but I need to be better about that.
I think for me, though, the place I've arrived at is because like a lot of people watching this, we work from home, right? And what that means is there's no real boundaries in your life between work and play and the rest of your life. It all just blurs into one. So there's a tendency for you to sit down at the computer and then not get up for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, even in some people's cases, which is, let's be honest, it's shockingly bad for you. It's terrible for your posture. It's terrible for your hip flexors. It's terrible for your lower back. It's terrible for your eyesight. I mean, there's a litany of things that it affects negatively. And so what I've found is the thing that's really working for me is I set a timer for 20 to 25 minutes, and then I work for that period. And then the timer goes off, and there's a 5-minute break where I usually stretch, or I go outside and just get a bit of fresh air and, do a few mobility movements and just, as I said, stretch. And then I'll go back in and do another 25 minutes of work. And to me, not only does that make me feel like I'm being less unhealthy, but it also allows me to concentrate far better than if I'm just staring at the screen consistently without any break. Because I mean, it's been shown over and over again that your level of concentration reaches a peak at around 20 to 25 minutes and then tails off sharply. And so you're not being very effective if you're just sitting in front of the computer for extended periods of time. So if you want to be more productive, if you want to get more done, as well as being more healthy, you'll set some limits, and also try to get into a rhythm of work, break, work, break, work, break.
Can you remind me the name of that method as well?
Oh, so the method I'm using is called the Pomodoro method, which is, it's alternating 25-minute work periods and 5-minute rest periods. And it's been a real godsend for me during this time, because I'm just like you. I have a tendency to zone into stuff and not realize when my ability to concentrate has been compromised,
Yeah, even, I do all the photography and design, and that's one thing I noticed, you really have to have breaks just to maintain perspective, because if you're looking at something for a long period, you don't see the color balance when it's off. There's a bunch of things that you really, you get accustomed to seeing one thing and you don't have any contrast to differentiate from. So it works great when I get up and I can go get like a glass of tea, walk around, or do something, or even take an extended break. That's what I've found to be the most productive, as far as allowing me to see things in their natural way, so I don't have it too warped.
That's good.
Yeah, I wanted to go over. So I figured we could talk about a couple of other things too. If you want to start with maybe about meditation and what you usually do for your meditative practices.
Yeah, so I think that's really important for the spiritual and mental components of staying healthy, not just during this time, always. But meditation for me is just well, I don't want to say it's just, because it's a big thing to me, but the practice of it is very simple. I choose a time and a place where I know I won't be disturbed, and I sit with my eyes closed and my back up straight, pretty much the way I'm sitting now. I close my eyes, and then I just try to focus on the sensation of my breath entering and exiting my nose. So I'm obviously breathing through my nose, and then you just try to, because that's the thing with meditation. I mean, there's many different forms of meditation, but the one I found is the most effective is about teaching you to concentrate your awareness on a single point. So you choose a single point of focus. And the easiest one, or one of the most common ones, is the sensation of the breath at the tip of your nose. I mean, there are other ones, such as some people focus on feeling their heartbeat and using that as the point of focus. But the main thing is that you're training your mind to not be jumping around all the time and so scattered, and you're bringing it back to a place of centeredness. And I think that's one of the things that's giving us all so much grief at the moment, is because a lot of this, the pain and the suffering that we're going through during this time is self-inflicted, because our minds are making it seem like it's worse than it is, and they're taking the obvious danger and the stress of the situation, and they're amplifying it up 5 or 10 times, right? And for me, I found that meditation is an antidote to that. It helps get your mind back under control and helps you separate yourself from your thoughts, so you can see when you're being irrational or overly fearful, or just not seeing the situation clearly.
Yeah, that's great. I think a big problem, it's easy to run off the deep end, and like you said, it's being promoted as something much worse than it is. You would think every single city is burning down and everything's being destroyed, and it's happening in the bigger cities, obviously. But the way that the media, propagates this fear is dishonest, and I think it's really pushing people to not only a state of anxiety but depression. It's going to cause long-term effects for millions of people, and we're not even, we haven't even seen it yet. I think in the next 5 years, you're really going to see the repercussions from it.
Yeah, so. I can believe that. I mean, I just heard yesterday, I was listening to a podcast, and the host was saying that the only person he knows who's gone to hospital is a friend of his who's had a panic attack during this time, because he's been so stressed out about it all. And again, I don't want to really get into whether, COVID is as serious as everyone says it is, or as the media's claim. I don't even think that's the subject of this conversation. I think what we're just really trying to help people with is health, right? And how to guard your health and how to improve your health even this time, because there are, I mean, we can really, some people are coming out of this even healthier than they were going in, right? Like, I know physically I'm in much better health than before, because I've really focused on doing a lot of yoga and a lot of stretching and a lot of dynamic movements in my spare time, and just getting my body into shape. And also, as I put a video on my Instagram and my Facebook the day before yesterday, I started an intermittent fasting program. So I've lost quite a lot of weight. Yeah. And I guess the main thing to know is you don't have to become unhealthier during this time, right? If you do things like we've discussed, like, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about from you about one of those things in a moment. But I guess my point is, you can take your health back into your own hands, and that's what we and our company is all about, right? It's like, not being overly reliant on the medical establishment and their pharmacological interventions, and realizing that the person who's most responsible for your health is you, right? Not your doctor, not the hospital, not your family, not your workplace, not your health insurance. It's you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people over the years have given up their, they've neglected their responsibility of learning about health and how to take care of their body, and they trust doctors. And what they have to remember is a lot of doctors make money on you being ill, not well. Mm-hmm. And so they're quick to prescribe pharmaceuticals, which I, my feelings about that. Mm-hmm. Again, fortunately, the way I've kind of lived my adult life, I've always taken upon myself to learn about things and to educate myself and to not go to the doctor and to try to solve things on my own. And because of that, I've been able to, I think I've done a fairly good job of taking care of myself. I'm 42. Yeah. I feel healthier than I've ever been, aside from the stress lately. And I think the one thing I can say for this entire course of events that's happened since, March, I mean, with all the negative, the positives that we can look at is it's given us time to spend more time with our families. It's given us the opportunity to meditate and to do things that are healthy for us. A lot of people are training more and working out in their homes and realizing that they don't have to go to the gym. Gyms are great and you can get a lot out of it, but for general health, just waking up in the morning, drinking a glass of water, going for a hike, a walk, push-ups, sit-ups, just basic calisthenics, and then getting a good, healthy breakfast, low in sugar. And that can look like a few different things, but the most important thing is just, not eating processed foods or, refined oils, limiting your sugar intake, and trying to eat, like I said, whole and processed foods, and nose to tail if you're doing meat. So
there's something else. I mean, I totally agree with everything you've just said. I think there's something that we've both forgotten, which I've actually, I don't want to say struggling with, but I definitely could do better at it, which is my sleeping pattern. Because again, it's all tied into the same thing, right? The computer is, as I was saying to one of my clients recently, using computers and phones is, it's literally the anti-sleep, they're anti-sleep devices, because those devices, by their very nature, they require mental stimulation. They require you to engage with them mentally, right? And when it's sleep time, what you're trying to do is actually disengage your mind. You're trying to quiet your mind down so that you can relax. You're trying to calm the system down, engage the parasympathetic nervous system and enter into a state of relaxation so that your body can rest. And then when you're sitting on your phone at night and scrolling and seeing news about riots or, people dying from the virus or whatever it might be, that is doing the exact opposite of calming you down, whether you know it or not, whether you can tell on a conscious level that it's causing that response, or whether it's on a subconscious level where it's starting to play on your mind and cause anxiety. I think it really compromises sleep. And I know you're always telling me to put my devices down in the evening and start preparing for bed. And one of the things that helps me when I get it right is when I leave the phone in another room and I just get an actual real life book and I use that as my evening entertainment. That's really helped me switch my mind off at night.
Well, yeah, and you notice too, I remember reading when I was a kid. I never read much because as soon as I'd start reading, I'd fall right asleep. And so everything now is, it's digital. So if I'm, on my phone, I don't have that same reaction. I can stay up and read until 3, 4 a.m. easy. And but same thing, as soon as I pick up a book, it's like, man, if I can get through 30 minutes, it's usually pretty surprising. I have to be pretty keyed up to get past that. Otherwise, I'm ready to go right to bed.
It's a natural sedative. I mean, speaking of sedatives, I know you're a big fan of magnesium, and I'm personally, I don't really get a great result from oral magnesium. It doesn't make me feel very good. It kind of, I don't know why, it makes me a little bit groggy and it doesn't make me feel great the next day. But what I have found has been absolutely phenomenal for me, which it's one of the top 5 of things I've figured out in the last couple of years, is topical magnesium oil. I put like 10 spritzes of that in my hands, rub it around, and then just rub it on my torso, and man, I almost instantly start to relax.
Yeah, everybody has a different reaction to supplements. Perhaps there's something in the oral. It could be the form that you're taking to. There's multiple forms of magnesium. I take magnesium threonate because it's supposed to cross the blood-brain barrier. Again, I'd have to look at it and see all the details, but back in the day when I was going through them, I found that magnesium threonate seemed to fit the bill for me best. I take magnesium citrate on the side too, just preventatively, because I do go out and train and do sweat, if I'm out kayaking or something.
Okay, so it was more of an electrolyte than anything.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, obviously, and it comes in electrolyte forms as well. So if you get, if you're taking salts and stuff, it all comes together. And, the one thing that I think people forget is how important salt is and electrolytes in general. And you need to keep those balanced too. So you need potassium in the right amount, magnesium in the right amount, and, sodium. And I think that's one thing, people neglect a lot of times. Salt was demonized for so many years that people still believe that it's this evil thing. I mean, you need 5 grams a day just to maintain, healthy limits. And if you're exercising a lot, if you're on a ketogenic diet, the way your kidneys excrete it, you actually have to have, 2 to maybe even 3 times that amount to really feel good if you're training a lot. And so I usually take between, I would say, 8 and 12 grams a day on average. If I'm training more, I can go up to 15.
That's impressive. Yeah.
I mean,
I'm totally with you. I feel when that is one craving I never resist is the craving for salt. I'm on the same page with you. If I heavily salt my food and I drink a lot of electrolyte replacement drinks, and
yeah,
I totally agree with you. Okay, so starting from the top, we've got number 1 was it take breaks from your vitamin D? Yeah.
Vitamin D, general health, yeah, just to maintain health right now.
Okay.
Zinc if you're feeling run down. Vitamin K to go in conjunction with vitamin D.
Okay.
And then meditation.
Yeah, we had meditation. Try to take some quiet time and meditate for, I would say, even 5 minutes will make a difference in your life, right? But
yeah,
15 minutes, 15 to 30 is better.
Yeah.
Take frequent breaks from the computer.
Correct.
And also get up and go outside to get fresh air and be in nature, but also for sunlight. Don't be terrified of sunlight.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big one. Can I go over a couple other things too? I just took some notes earlier because I wanted to kind of keep it fresh in my mind. There's a few things you can take from a supplemental side of it. And some of these work for certain people, and and some people find that they don't feel great with it. And one is GABA. And I know your wife has some issues with GABA. She doesn't feel great. I've known of other people that are really sensitive to it, but I do find it effective, and not in the doses that they typically sell at the stores. Typically if you look at
500 to 750 milligrams per cap usually, right?
Yeah. And for me, that seems extremely excessive, and it's important to have it. I think it's a potent anxiolytic. I mean, it can tone you down, but I take it from like 50 milligrams to 100. And typically,
and that phrase anxiolytic means it's an it counters anxiety.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like it in smaller amounts. I found a really good dissolvable tab, and I can't remember the name of the company, but it's 50 milligrams GABA, 50 milligrams L-theanine. And that for me, it doesn't make me feel groggy at all. It takes the edge off. If I need to go to sleep, I'm a little bit keyed up. I found that really helps. And you can take it during the daytime, and it doesn't really do anything too dramatic to your state of mind, but it just takes the edge off.
What a lot of people don't know is that your brain secretes GABA when you stretch as well. So that's actually one of the things I do if I really want a good night's sleep, is just a 20-minute stretch before bed. In particular, the hip flexors and the neck, just stretch those out, and that really starts getting me nice and sleepy as well, because I think partly because of the release of GABA, the endogenous release of GABA.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing substance, and again, effective. And then theanine, the other part that I was talking about, it's something else. Oh, one thing we forgot to cover is reducing caffeine intake right now, because you're already, with anxiety and stress, if you're having 3-4 cups of coffee a day with that, you're only going to promote these issues. So if you're having troubles with anxiety, I would suggest switching over to tea, because tea has a natural source of L-theanine in it. And
which L-theanine counters the caffeine, right?
Yeah, it's the easiest way to explain it is it kind of modulates it. And so, the difference is if you drink a lot of coffee, you can feel really jittery, and I sometimes get that on green tea anyway. But the theanine is supposed to reduce that jitteriness, and I'll take like an exogenous, like a powdered form of L-theanine, supplementary. So
nice.
Yeah, usually around 100, 200 milligrams tops if I get too much caffeine and I need to think in kind of a linear way, and I'm not, so I'm not too scattered. And theanine is kind of my go-to with that. So
okay.
I think before sleep, I think it can be really effective. Those two things together are really useful.
Agreed. I've had much better effects myself with green tea than I've had with coffee. I find coffee is actually too strong for me, and it really makes me very jittery and a little bit edgy. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Cool.
Yeah. And there's some other stuff. I don't want to run off on a tangent too far. We went over magnesium. Magnesium can be really beneficial with that. It's good to take that at night. I usually take that with zinc before I go to sleep.
And you might, as I said, you might want to consider trying various forms. If oral forms don't work for you, try using
topical.
Topical. I've had some great success with that.
Yeah, it's something, I've heard other people say that, so it's something I should probably invest in just to see how it works for me. Valerian is another one that I find really, now that one, I notice a really heavy kind of sedative effect with Valerian.
Okay. So funny enough, I've got a bottle of Valerian that I purchased on your recommendation, which I've yet to try, but I might give it a go tonight.
Yeah, it kind of smells like a bum's feet. It's pretty nasty. But
how do you know what a bum's feet smell like?
I lived in LA.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
But if you can get past that, it's pretty effective. If I really need to get to sleep, I kind of have this ritual. I usually take between 15 and 20 milligrams zinc. I think 400 milligrams of magnesium threonate, some valerian. Sometimes we'll even take some lemon balm, which is also called Melissa. Lemon balm is actually pretty effective for relaxing at night.
Yeah, I've used it as well.
And even some very, very low dose melatonin, like 1 milligram.
Melatonin is one, again, there's certain compounds that I think I've got a very sensitive, or very, sensitive is the word, neurochemistry, and melatonin is something, if I take more than 1 milligram, I get very groggy the next day. Yeah,
you hear that a lot, actually, a lot of people. And a lot of people say that with valerian as well. They'll wake up and feel like they're a little bit hungover. I fortunately don't have that, but I've heard it.
I guess as we said earlier, I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to you to figure out what works for you, right? And that's part of when I said earlier, your health is your responsibility. Part of it is, testing stuff, right? Like you're figuring out what works and what doesn't for you.
Yeah, the one thing, again, I don't want to run off on another tangent, but that idea of starting from a place of, restriction, diet-wise, it's really important as well. For me, I did the carnivore diet for about 3 months, really strict last year. And, while keto worked for me great for years, I found that was the most beneficial thing I've done dietarily for years. And not so much as a long-term diet, but just to kind of establish what I get inflammation from, what gives me problems. And so, I started with that diet, and after the first month, I started introducing, very small amounts of different vegetables, 1 week at a time, just one at a time. So I think I was on for 3 months strict. I think after that, the next month, it was like broccoli and then cauliflower, a little bit of sweet potato. And I think you can do that with supplements as well. Just start with one, find what works for you. Obviously, study it, do enough research to where that you're getting the right amounts, an effective dose without going too far in the other direction. And I think if you're able to do that, you'll start understanding your body better, and you'll start getting the results you actually need. So true.
Well, cool, Shane. This has been fun. I think we should make this a regular thing and just discuss what we're doing to improve our health and the quality of our lives. And let's do another one of these again soon.
Sounds good. Good chat.
Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, see you.